Hey everybody, Crypto Mentor 99. How you doing? So I thought of doing this video 2 or 3 nights ago. I'm like, no, yeah, no, yeah, and I'm just gonna do it. So for those of you that know, I'm gonna be going to Guatemala soon, and my wife and I do we raised some funds from our friends, and we've basically adopted a village of 80 families that live on the side of a mountain. And whenever we visit there, we bring them like gym shoes, clothes, medicine, soccer balls, backpacks. Anyhow, I'm going to put the video below if you want a little more information. If you're watching me for the first time, but I remember this is going to be my ninth trip, nine. And I remember on trip 6 or 7, I've got a friend down there. I know a guy, and we call him Captain. True story. He was in the army or the military. We call him Captain, and his friends call him Captain. And he says to me, "Hey, would you like to go visit some of my friends in jail? Maybe encourage them, you know, help them, like, sure, Captain." It's an older man. He's not in the military anymore. So the family that I was staying with drove me to his house, and then we drove over to the jail. It was really a prison. I was scared. So we drive over there, and we come down this really narrow road, and there's cars parked off to the left and to the right. And it's a little rainy, so it's a little muddy, ready to be a lot muddy. And he says to me that at this prison, well, then he started calling it a prison. I'm like, Captain, I thought you said it was a jail. I thought we were going to go in this like nice building in downtown Guatemala City. Oh no, this was out in out in the sticks. So we walk down this road, and I see women, carrying like bags of food and coffee and, milk and stuff. And I'm like, what kind of jail or prison is this? So we get to the clearing, and there's all this barbed wire fencing, maybe, I don't know, 20 acres, 30 acres with tarps over it. This was like an outside prison where they were holding, obviously, prisoners. So my friend, the captain, says to me, well, I know all these guys you're going to meet, they're innocent. And he told me why they were in, which I'd rather not say on this video why and what circumstances that they were in. But my friend, the captain, said they've arrested these guys from years ago. I'm like, okay, again, he's got a thick accent. I'm trying to put all this together. So to get into the prison was no joke. And these guards do not have smiles on their faces. And I've got a phone and I've got a backpack, none of which you could bring in the prison. I had to bring my passport and the whole bit. So they had these bins numbered from like 1 to 20, and you had to put your stuff in there. And again, this is all outside with the tarp where the guards are at. So I said to Captain, I'm like, you want me to leave my backpack and my phone? He's like, oh yeah, you got to. I'm thinking, what if the guards plant something in my backpack and I end up in prison the rest of my life in Guatemala? He's like, don't worry. I'm like, okay. So I put it down there. And some of the guards knew him because when he was a younger man, I'm getting into too much, but he was high in the military in Guatemala. I'll leave it at that. So we go in there, and I met like five, maybe six of his friends. Again, none of these guys speak English. I'm on my own. So we go into this first like tent that's outside, and you kind of walk in, and there's an old guy with his wife, and they're like, it's like visiting day, right? But you could bring food into the prison. And the captain says to the guy in Spanish, hey, meet my buddy, which is me. So they were real thankful. Like they're really respectful when they meet and see Americans like this guy. So I turn around and Captain's gone. He went to go later. I found out he left me alone like 40 minutes in this Guatemalan prison. I'm like, so I'm like, okay, I'm like, Cappy, are you gonna translate? And he's not there. He went to see his buddies in the next enclosures or whatever. So I looked at this guy and his face is just, I mean, he's Guatemalan, but his face is just red from the sun. And I'm like, what are you in for? And he could barely squeak out a few English words. And I'm like, have they formally charged you? And he's like, no. And I don't know, like, I don't want a lot of comments about, well, that's not the way the judicial system is in Guatemala. All I know is Captain had about a half dozen friends that they just round up without cause and put him in these prisons. So said this guy, how long have you been in? He's like, 3 years. I'm like, have you even had a court date yet? The guy's like, no. And I'm like, how long could you be in here? He's like, I have no idea. And later I found out that he was in a unit where you have to pay special to like have a cot inside this like 15 by 15-foot tent with like a blue tarp covering on it. That was like Cadillac, deluxe accommodations. The other guys just stayed in bunk beds 3 and 4 high in like a 20 by 20 area, like a bunch of sardines. So I go to the next tent. I'm like, well, maybe Cappy's in there, but Cappy told him, hey, I got an American, you know. So I go into the next tent, and this guy spoke a little better English. My point is, I've never seen so much hopelessness on someone's face in my whole life. Then I went to the next tent, the next tent. The last guy, his daughter, his teenage daughter was in there, and she spoke English really well. So I ended up talking to her, who translated to her dad, and this man's wife was there too. But I've never felt so out of place in this prison in my whole life. And it was sad. It really kind of rattled me on the inside. And then I saw Cappy. I'm like, dude, or the captain. I'm like, dude, where did you go, man? He's like, oh, well, I'm talking to my buddies. They're going to close the prison in 5 minutes. I'm like, what? And he said, well, typically the prison on visitors day is open from like noon to 4, but they just decide, the guards that is, whenever they want, whenever they could close the prison to visitors. So we had to go out, and I'm thinking to myself, A, I hope my cell phone is there. B, I hope my backpack is still there with my passport. And I hope that they don't arrest me for some trumped up charge, like we found a bomb in your backpack or something. You know what I mean? I mean, this is all, if you would have saw this prison outside, I was scared to death. So we get back in the car, and I said to the captain, dude, you needed to fill me in a little bit more on what I was in for. Like, we went to the first tent, you left, and I'm on my own. Like, you talk about a fish out of water. Anyhow, my point is, I was glad that I could help my friend, the captain, who had a half dozen buddies in prison, but it really rattled me. And I can only imagine that was my first prison experience. And hopefully, maybe not my last. Maybe I'll go back there on my trip at the end of the month, but it was quite an experience. But the point of the video that I probably haven't done a great job in making, um, you talk about hopelessness, you talk about despair, you talk about guys with bad teeth, no no toothbrushes, and body odor and dirty hair. It was sad. Sometimes I think I'm like Forrest Gump. I just end up in these odd places that end up being super interesting. Have you guys seen the movie Forrest Gump? Um, so Forrest Gump's going back to Guatemala soon. Take a look at the video below, but just be thankful when you lay your head going to bed tonight that you're not in prison. Because I'll tell you what, I don't care what country, even the United States, you don't want to be in prison. And even visiting there, I tried to cheer these guys up and listen to them and, you know, have compassion and empathy on them. Um, but yeah, I was rattled for like the rest of the afternoon when I got back to my friend's house that I was staying at. Anyhow, Crypto Mentor 99, that was my visit to my first Guatemalan prison. And yeah, stay out of prison. Love y'all. Bye bye.